What's going on? Today we're talking about operational value add, things we look for and things we're trying to improve within our own portfolio. So I'll just list off kind of the six main things. Eco-friendly, so low flow water fixtures, things like that. RUBS, ratio utility billing system, or also maybe directly billing back by adding meters. Pairing a non-refundable move-in fee with a security deposit equivalent company. So we use Rhino. Another example would be like Sure Deposit, which is more of a bond. Advertising, reducing turn times, and shopping your contract services. So to kind of jump into one example, if you like math. So the average standard toilet uses 7 gallons per flush. And the average low flow toilet model uses 1.6 gallons per flush. So just assuming at our 20-unit apartment complex that there's an average of 3 tenants in each 2-bedroom unit, and they each flush 3 times a day, we'll say. Obviously, depending on if you work from home or what that looks like. If you have kids that are constantly using the bathroom, that could obviously be quite a bit higher. But we'll take the 5.4 gallons times the 3 people times the 3 flushes a day times the 20 apartments times 365 days in a year. And that comes out to 354,780 gallons a year. And so I looked for kind of a general across the US standard on what the cost of water is, and it came out to about 3 cents on average per 10 gallons. And so I took that 354,000 number, divided it by 10, and multiplied it by 3 cents, and it came out to $1,064 a year. So that's savings by just implementing low flow toilets across all 20 of the bathrooms in our 20-unit complex. And at a 7 cap, that's an additional $15,000 in value for capturing $1,000 that we previously weren't. So obviously, if you added this across all the fixtures in the complex, that savings would increase, and ultimately the value of your building would increase by recapturing that income. So that's the first one. Moving on to RUBS. So ratio utility billing system. This is where you're actually billing back utilities on the tenants. So maybe water, sewer falls on you, the owner. There isn't a great way for you to individually meter and bill directly to the tenants. So you decide to, take the total cost, and we've seen people divide it out by the amount of occupants per unit. So or even just a standard fee, $30 for a 1-bedroom and $45 for a 2-bedroom is something that we've seen in the market as well. One thing to keep in mind, you cannot actually make money on the utility bill backs to the tenants unless you're also a utility company, but that's just something to keep in mind. You can't make money on that. We have seen owners make money on utilities, and that's definitely a big no-no. So, we had to underwrite that. We weren't going to have that income going in, but just something to look for. Moving on to security deposit equivalents. So we use Rhino, and kind of the thought process here is if your apartment rents for $900, which some of our 2-bedrooms do, and a tenant moves out, unit's in rough shape, they did some damage, $900 really doesn't cover a whole lot. And along with that, collecting a deposit doesn't affect you in any way from an income standpoint. What we've learned and started to implement is that if you collect a non-refundable move-in fee for, say, a fraction of what that deposit would have been, and then they charge, Rhino is a security deposit equivalent, so they actually bill the tenant monthly, and depending on a couple qualifying factors, their credit score, it could be anywhere from $8 to $20 a month, depending on how high we set the coverage. So on our 20-unit apartment complex, we have the tenants have about $2,000 in coverage. So that might be, again, depending on their qualifying criteria, $12 a month that they're paying towards having basically the insurance. And so when they move out, if there was a claim, we would deal directly with Rhino. We wouldn't be going after the tenant. Rhino takes care of that. And we're able to take that non-refundable move-in fee and actually apply that towards our income column. So it's just another way to kind of add some revenue. So definitely an interesting strategy. I know there's other platforms out there as well, but would certainly consider this. Moving on to marketing. A lot of mom and pop owners really don't market, and that's why their rents are partially the reason why their rents are so far below market, is because they aren't actively doing anything. And so This is our apartment complex, 20 units. We don't have an apartments.com listing. This is something that we think we need to add because this can help us stand out. We feel like a lot of tenants go on apartments.com as well as Zillow. So those are two big areas where we want to add on our unit listings. And that's just kind of a way that you can stand out and potentially assist in pushing rents. Moving on to turn times. So this is one that we're actually working on within our portfolio to reduce overall vacancy, but also just looking at the cost of 1 week, of shortening that timeline by 1 week from a vacant unit for 4 weeks versus 3 weeks. That's almost a 2% vacancy decrease on kind of the overall metric if you were divided out by 52 weeks in a year. And so kind of the tool that we're working on is using Asana to basically create workflows. And what that's going to allow us to do is it's a way for us to hold accountability over our contractors, our property managers, and kind of work in sync without micromanaging is the intent there. And so that's going to be something that if you can reduce your turn times and your overall vacancy, obviously that's more money to the bottom line. And the last thing that we've noticed, some mom and pop owners have, super low insurance rates, or, maybe their contract services actually are really solid and maybe cheaper than what we think or would have underwritten for. But we've also seen on occasion that there'll be owners that haven't shopped landscaping or trash removal or their insurance rates in 10, 15 years. And so their rates may actually have just kind of ticked up over time, and they had a relationship with the company, so didn't really question it or shop it around. And on one of the properties that we did purchase, we were able to reduce our trash rate by quite a bit just because the owner hadn't really been shopping it around. So those are kind of, different things to keep in mind when you're underwriting, rather than just looking for, hey, how can I raise rents? You can also, increase the value of your property and ultimately the bottom line by looking at some of these operational value add components. So I hope this was interesting and hope there was a takeaway there. And if there's any I missed, feel free to drop them in the comments.